You're a basketball guy. Did you watch that Pistol Shrimps documentary?
Are you talking about the women's basketball team?
Yeah,
I didn't know they made a documentary about them.
Yeah. They made a documentary about them. I think you can watch it on like Amazon or something like that. But I watched it multiple times. It's very fascinating, very fun to watch.
How long is it? You've watched it multiple times.
It's like 80 to 90 minutes.
How do you make time? So you are an incredibly busy person. Like I feel like every time I look you up, you're doing something. You're at a mic. You're at a show. You're at something. How do you find time to watch a documentary multiple times?
So a lot of things are just playing in the background while I'm doing other stuff.
What do you do? I like making food. You have a documentary in the background?
Yeah, or like I'm like writing jokes, or I'm like just working on work stuff for my job, and it's just playing in the background. So I'm not really like looking at it. Sometimes I'll see something for the it's like I'm watching it for the first time when I actually do see something. I'm like, oh, that's what that looked like. I just had it in my head very different way, but that looks cool.
I can't. My thing is like if I am not actively watching, it needs to be something that I know. Like or else I'm gonna want to watch it. So like if I'm like I don't cook or I don't watch TV while I'm cooking, but like if I'm folding laundry, it needs to be like I'll put on Scrubs. Oh. No, but I do find it interesting that you do so much and then all of a sudden you like have time because there are a few movies that I think you've recommended to me that I've watched, and I'm always like, when do you have time for all this stuff?
Oh yeah.
But you're doing everything at the same time. How are you not? If you're writing jokes while watching, like let's say you're watching The Thing. Okay, which is a movie I can almost guarantee you like.
Yeah.
Let's say, so how are you avoiding like not writing jokes about like Keith David?
No, I mean that stuff definitely slips in, but I just don't use it because I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I can't say anything about this. Like I watched, what is it? Is it They Live, the one with Roddy Piper and Keith David?
I've not seen that, but yes, that is with Roddy Piper.
They have the longest ever fight scene, and I wrote so many jokes about that dumb fight scene. I mean, it's a really cool fight scene actually, but it's so long because they just told John Carpenter, they're like, "Hey, we spent a long time rehearsing this. Can we just use all of it?" And he was like, "Yeah, I guess so." So it's like it feels like a 10-minute fight scene between the two of them in this back alley, and I'm just like, "Dear God!" And so I definitely wrote jokes about that, but I was like, I can't talk to an audience about this because they're gonna be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
like,
remember that movie none of you have seen? There's a 10-minute fight scene.
Yeah.
By the way, before we keep going, I should introduce the tea that we're drinking.
Okay, yeah.
So for those tuning at home, the tea that we are drinking today, this is Bird and Blend's Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Mm-hmm. It's an herbal tea. It steeps at 212, and I steeped it for 6 minutes. This is also named after one of my favorite movies.
Oh.
I'm in love. That is delicious. It's just the right amount for me of fruity and floral, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I like it. Are you a big tea drinker?
Not a lot. I've tried to. You and I talked about this during the pandemic, actually.
Yeah.
Different teas I should try, and I definitely tried a couple of them, but they never quite hit the palate for whatever reason.
Do you want it? Are you kind of someone who's like, if it's a little sweeter, you like it, or are you someone who's like, you're just gonna drink it plain, and if you don't like it, you don't like it?
No, I definitely someone who like adds a lot of honey to stuff.
Yeah,
and people
which
are like,
is
it's
great.
no longer what it was going to be. I was like, no, I know that. That's why I did that.
No,
with the honey.
Don't agree with those people. Honey sometimes brings out the flavors of a tea.
Sure.
Maybe that's my hot take.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you don't strike me as a big tea drinker. You strike me as a sweet tea drinker.
Yeah, no, I definitely did drink a lot of that in the South. And like, I thought it was good, but like, I keep thinking about it, like it's so easy to make, but I have not made any since I moved to LA. And like when I go back home, nobody ever makes it, because I was the only one who was drinking it kind of.
Oh,
so they're like,
well, the other weird thing to me about you, by the way, and I love your Southern elements to you. First, I never hear a Southern accent in you. Maybe you have one, but like I don't hear it.
I think part of it is that I had like a speech impediment when I was a kid.
Yeah, so I was listening to that.
So I never went to see a speech therapist because I was just given a note that said like he should go see a speech therapist or he might grow out of it. I don't know.
He might or might not need this. We don't have an answer.
I think like my family, like they didn't mean anything by it, but getting called mushmouth enough times by your family, you will just like pick up certain things. You're like, maybe I'll just slow down and not say anything. How about that? I'll just be quiet a lot. Would you like that? So certain things like that. So I don't think I picked up their accent as a result of like just weird little things I did to avoid being called that.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, if you had to choose between Mushmouth or Big Andy, where are you going?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I'm just be this way.
So does your family all sound like a little different than you?
My youngest brother, he doesn't have much of a Southern accent. And my like it's not like super strong. It's not that super strong drawl you see like in Dukes of Hazzard or whatever. Yeah, but like my grandparents definitely have a very strong accent. My grandmother from the Philippines obviously does not have. I mean, she might have a Southern Philippines accent. I don't
I
know.
say she probably doesn't have a Southern accent. She probably doesn't sound like a Hoyle Andy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
which by the way, I don't think anyone really sounds like that, but that is my Southern accent.
Oh, there's definitely some people. I've met some
Really?
people where I'm like, "Are you a cartoon?
That's what I hear.
Why are you doing this right now?"
Hoyle, I thought your jokes were so funny, Andy.
Yeah. No, there's definitely some people who talk like that, and I can't tell if they're like doing it to be funny or if they're real. But I'm like, I think you're real, and this is just how you sound for whatever reason.
Unbelievable. I was talking to Anthony Davis about how different it is to do comedy in the South versus doing comedy elsewhere. And he's like, when I like make jokes about how racist the South is, they're like, yeah, we are. And he's like, what? That was it? Okay. And then they'll say something racist and they'll be like, you know what I'm saying? That's a good joke. And he's like, Anthony's like, don't talk to me about that. I don't, like, do you go back and do comedy a lot?
I do it on occasion. Like when I was doing comedy, there it was like in a lot of like it was like Theater 99, which is like an improv theater.
Yeah.
Or it'd be like this really cool dive bar called the Sparrow, and there's another one called Tin Roof. The Sparrow is actually no longer; they just closed. But the Tin Roof was another one I did at, and so it was like kind of like a punk hipster kind of bar.
That's cool.
I really liked that place. That was like where I started doing comedy, and I really liked it a lot. It's very weird when I came out here to LA because people like try to tell me what the South is sometimes, and they're like, "Oh, it's like you guys are all like a bunch of racist ticks or whatever." I was like, "No, we're not." They're like, "Well, I've never been anywhere except for LA," and I was like, "Oh, good, you took all your understanding of other parts of the country from TV.
Yeah.
Awesome, that's great." And like for me growing up, like we were made very aware of our history, like very aware. Like
Really?
like people were like, "Oh, you went to field trips on plantations." Like, yeah, not to have fun at the plantation, to like be told what happened at the plantation. They were like, "This is what went down. All right, this is not cool. All right."
Oh my God.
We had a whole like semester just called South Carolina history. Most of it was set in the 1800s. Most of it was about like, here's what they did back then. And it's like, all right. And yet, whenever we have tourists visit, they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna go to your market." And I was like, "Cool." And they're like, "You know, it used to be called the slave market, right?" It's like, "Yeah, I grew up here. I know exactly what it was called. They don't sell slaves there anymore. They sell Pokemon characters and like little like figurines and like grits and stuff like that. And people make palmetto roses and stuff like that." So.
I have to ask you because I was just thinking about it earlier. As someone with a speech impediment, why the hell would you go into stand up?
Right?
Yeah.
Like I should
hardest
not.
thing.
Like, yeah, because I took all those like different career tests or whatever.
No way.
Yeah, all the career tests were like, you should not be doing stand up. Like, you should not be doing any kind of public speaking or entertaining. Like, this would set off all your
You should be a
anxieties, which
pastor.
it does do.
Does it really?
Yeah.
You never strike me as anxious on stage.
Oh yeah, no, I'm very anxious on stage. Like I'm always like, am I looking at this person enough or not enough? I don't know. Maybe I should be looking over them.
When you were doing your special, were you legitimately trying to clock how often you were looking at different people?
No, but this was like this past weekend when I was at Comedy on State when I was doing that show for Madison Comedy Festival. I was like definitely like, where should I be looking at in this audience right now? Like I've been up here for 10 minutes because I have a tendency just to like look straight ahead and look over everybody's head. And they're like, no, you got to make eye contact with people. And I was like, okay. And then I occasionally do. And then people are like, and I was like, yep, I won't look at you. Good for you. You know, I understand your hesitation to be looked at. That's understandable. I always hear about people like being really good at reading audiences. And I was like, I want to get better at that to some extent. I don't know what that means exactly. And I was like, I need to look at them a little bit more. But yeah, I get like anxiety sometimes. Like I'm just like, again, I was doing Comedy on State for the first time, and that's one of the top clubs in all of the U.S. It's like number 2, number 1. I don't know, but like I definitely, from my perspective, I was like, this is number 1. And I've only done a few clubs. I did like improv, and I did Zany's Nashville, and I was like, okay, these are pretty big clubs. These are pretty cool. But this one again, I was like nervous, and so I was like, all right, just throw your shoulders back, and you're just gonna go up and do this now. And like, it was weird too because I remember that lineup. Like, I was all Chicago comics. The host was from Madison. No, this was in Madison.
Comedy on State, yeah.
And then I was the only LA comic from not from the Midwest on that lineup. And it was really odd. And they were all like super nice to me, but like it was like polite, but they all knew each other. And I was like, oh, this is awkward. But I had a good set. And then I was talking to them afterwards, and they're like, one guy was like, hey man, like, I don't mean to like, I hope I'm not offending you when I say this, but like, you're really good. And we don't really get a lot of good LA comics out here. We get a lot of people who say they're from LA and then they just immediately like just crap the bed the minute they get on stage. And I was like, I was like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. They're like, Josh Lanzet came through here.
Do you know JL? I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
JL?
JL.
He kept calling himself the JL.
Justin LeSherman? Is that who
Justin
it was?
LeSherman.
Yeah, so when he goes to other places he's not excited about, he changes his name to French.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
That's good. Yeah.
Which is fine. It makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I'm not saying I'm like the best comic in LA or whatever. I'm not saying that, but it was just like weird to me that first off they were like, yeah, they always claim LA as a credit, which I was like, ooh, that's not a good sign. Why are they claiming LA as a credit? Anybody can come to LA.
LA's a
comedy.
discredit.
Yeah.
I leave it out. Someone's like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "Everywhere."
Yeah. Because you consider yourself a New York guy. I remember you saying.
I mean,
that
I'm a
on
New
the
Yorker,
podcast.
born and raised.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if someone's like, "Are you an Angelino?" I'm like, "I live in LA."
Yeah.
But in September I've been here for 10 years. But I mean, like being born and raised in New York, I was there till I was 18. I mean, that's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Do you consider yourself an Angelino, or do you consider yourself a Carolinian?
I don't know.
Which is
I think it depends on what's happening at the current moment. Like if people are like, "Oh, where do you live?" I'm like, "Los Angeles," and they're like, "What do you consider yourself?" I'm like, "I think both." But at the same time, if I'm around enough, like I had some friends who were visiting in town.
Yeah.
And they're both from South Carolina. And she was talking. She had to go to see a lawyer about some job dispute that she was having. But she was also noted this lawyer because he's very traditional, like Southern, like wearing almost like that weird like
A bolo tie.
bolo tie.
Hell yeah.
And so then all three of us like, without missing a beat, just goes, excuse me, Miss Sarah, come on in here, darling. Why don't you sit on down? Like all three of us started doing that, and I just started cracking up, laughing, like we're crying, laughing, doing this like horrible, like caricature of a Southern lawyer.
Sure.
But at the same time, if somebody from Los Angeles had done that, I'd be like, hey, you don't get to do that.
Yeah, no,
all
no.
right, that's not you. All right, you don't get to say
You're
anything
not
about the South.
from
You're not
there.
from here. Okay.
Yeah, you're not one of us.
We get to do that. All right, that's it.
Oh yeah, I had someone. This is like, in my opinion, this is the analog for New Yorkers. Somebody the other day was like, "Do you know where there's a great bagel in LA?" And I go, "Where are you from?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "From San Francisco Bay Area." I go, "I don't care what your opinion is on the best bagel in LA." You know? Whoops. Keep it to yourself. I feel like anytime someone is telling me like bagels or pizza in LA, I'm like, if you're not from the East Coast, your opinion holds such little weight for me. Like, oh, have you been to this great pizza place, Domino's? And I was like, Domino's. That's what it is.
I do want to see a show called Lanzet Scales of Justice.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like somebody who's like, I want to weigh in on this. Like, where are you from? No.
Mm-mm.
And they keep like trying to touch the scale, and the scale just won't move. You're like, it's not gonna happen for you, bud.
Yeah.
Move on to something else here.
And then I have a Southern bailiff who's just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you got to go." That would be dreamy. I would love to like be one of those judge shows, like you have Judge Judy or Judge Joe Brown, Judge Josh, where I don't need to have reasoning for why I'm ruling the way I'm ruling. Like they like the person A may be totally right. I'm like, what? I'm gonna tell you something. That get up that you got there reminds me of an ex, and she was always mean to me. So you lost, you won. Boom. Next.
I would love that.
Yeah, no, have you ever, because your story, and like, spoiler for those listening at home, I've read some of your writing and I really like it.
Oh, thanks.
But your personal story doesn't find its way. Like, I've never read a pilot where, the main character is a dad with one leg. Like, that doesn't, you don't have that stuff. Have you ever thought about writing your own story as someone who like had a speech impediment, is now a stand-up comic, lived in the South,
Right.
like got married young, moved to LA, like all that feels very piloty or movie to me.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It just like it feels very weird. I feel very weird when it's like I think it's funny to make fun of like these things where they're no matter how small. Like the speech impediment was never like as much as my family had a hard time understanding it wasn't like the biggest thing in the world for me. It wasn't like, oh, I'm ostracized because nobody. So people could understand me. It's just times they were like, say it again.
Yeah.
One more time.
Give me just a fourth drive by on it.
So there was times where I was like, let's find a new word, and I think that actually helped me with like looking at words in dictionaries and stuff like that. I was like, I have a bigger vocabulary now.
Yeah, exactly.
I do not get exasperated.
How does Andy feel? He feels melancholic. Yeah.
But like, it feels very weird to like be like, here's my script about myself. Whereas like, I'd rather write about other people when it comes to like sitcoms and stuff like that. Like, I think that's more fun. Like, I guess because I never like loved the sitcoms where it's like, it's about this guy who is the main character. Like, I've only recently started like watching Everyone Loves Raymond. I'm like, oh, this show's actually kind of funny.
After watching it, I found I didn't love Raymond, and
Yeah.
that was an issue that I had personally.
Oh, I don't think that's the point of the show. Is it to love him?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I do
I
think
like
his
Men of a
stand-up's
Certain Age
good.
better, actually. Did you like that show?
I don't even know what that is.
Men of a Certain Age?
No.
It was Ray Romano's follow-up show. It was him, Andre Brower, and the guy from Quantum Leap, the main guy in that.
Scott Bakula?
Yeah, Scott Bakula.
What would you do if I were not sitting across from you right now?
Oh no,
Because I
I'm
don't think
horrible at
anyone would have gotten
There's
this.
times where I'm like, I think I'm gonna get kicked out of LA because I can't remember any actors' names. They're like, the guy from da da da. But they all play like just guys going through their like own separate midlife crisis or whatever. Andre Brower is amazing. He's this like 45-year-old dude who still works for his dad at the car dealership, and his dad is still dangling the ownership of the car dealership in front of his face. Like he's like, yeah, if maybe somebody could step up, they could really take over for me, and then I wouldn't have to be here all the time. And Andre Brower's like, even though he hates the job, he still wants his dad's approval. And it's like, you're 45.
But I think that it's funny that like that comment that you just made where you're like, someone doesn't like something, but they still want approval. To me, that's half of stand-up.
Yeah.
Half of stand-up to me is you are going out to these places. You're like, I don't even like this club. Like, I don't even like these people.
Yeah.
And then you finish your set and you're like, I wonder if they all liked what I did.
Yeah.
I hope they all really liked me. I hope he liked my joke. You know what the other thing about comedy that like no one talks about? Have you ever had someone come up to you after a show and go, man, you really broke the room open?
A couple times.
Right. And what I've learned, because I've gotten that comment a bunch, what I really think people are saying is like, hey, you just started to get him a little bit into jokes. Let me get up there now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but just put me up there for another 10 minutes. Like, I cracked them. Like, I mean, they're like, hey, you know how you just set the table for everyone? We're going to go eat dinner. You can go have the scraps in the cupboard.
That'd be really funny if off to the side, the audience didn't see them, but there was people actually scoring you, like, and they would hold up the points. They're like, "Oh, you got him on that first joke. Here we go. All right."
I do wonder. Like, I've never done those things like World Series of Comedy and shit like that. But I do think, don't they like score you, rate you, judge you?
I don't know how that works.
I don't either. I would. It's like okay, well, Andy hit a single with his first joke. It's the World Series, so
Yeah.
we're gonna get him on a double. And oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Okay, caught, pop fly, caught out. All right, but he tagged up. Now he's on third. I have no idea how that kind of stuff works.
No, I would love to think that's how it works. That would be really great.
It would just make for a better situation.
But then I think it would become like one of those like it'd become very subjective at a certain point. You're like, what? That's not. They're like, I mean, they laughed, but I didn't laugh. So
Yeah, well, that's the tough thing about, and I feel like, I don't know, do you consider yourself a storytelling comic or no?
No.
Okay. So that is the challenge for someone like me. I consider myself a storytelling comic.
you're
Like,
very good at it.
you're too sweet, but please continue
No,
to
like
lace that in.
like people were like, oh, why don't you do storytelling? I'm like, because I'm not very interesting. Like, it's very hard for me to hold somebody's attention for more than a couple minutes. Whereas like your stories are almost like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, what's going on now? Oh, we're doing this.
I hope that's the thing with like storytelling. You hope someone's not just like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I do think like your jokes. So for example, like one of my favorite jokes of yours about the Roosevelts, the lady Roosevelts. What like all like that is a story.
Sure.
But it's told in a way that's a joke. The challenge for someone like me, if it were scored, is going up against someone like you. They'd be like, Andy has very clear setups and punchlines. Josh, what happened here? And they're like, we heard a story about you learning about periods for the first time, and then you talked about meeting your girlfriend's family. I don't understand what happened. We give you a 2. You know?
I mean, that's kind of the fun thing about comedy, though, right? Is like all the different ways you can approach it and do the different stuff with it. Like my current favorite special right now, like I just tell everybody to watch it, is Dan Licata's For the Boys. And the whole premise of it is that he's performing in his old high school in Buffalo, New York for an entire audience made up of 15-year-old boys. He is constantly making references to things they don't know about. Like he's like, you guys know Bam Margera? And they're just like staring at him. He's like, okay, cool, man. And then he later brings up a story about Jackass. He's like, you guys know Jackass? And people start cheering. He's like, okay, cool. I could have preferred those cheers back when I was talking about Bam Margera, but this is cool too. I'm all right with that. But he tells this whole story about like, he was really into Jackass when he was in high school, and he kept trying to replicate different stunts.
Like-
he shows pictures from when he broke his leg. He's like, there's me. He's like, also I have video of when I broke, like the actual stunt that I did. And then he starts to show the stunt, but then all of a sudden, like, he walks into the middle of the video. He's like, psych, I got you. He's like, my dad destroyed that video.
What? Your tastes are so eclectic.
Yeah.
And I think like that translates in a little bit of your jokes, because I remember when I like when I heard like, okay, for those that are listening that don't know, so I didn't know that you had to RSVP to your special taping, and
Oh,
so the
right.
day of, I was like talking to Justin. He's like, "Are you going?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Do you have a ticket?" I was like, "What do you mean? I'm gonna go." And that's when I texted you, like losing my mind, and didn't get to go. But I knew a lot of the jokes were going to be in there, and what I like about all that stuff is that collection is so varied. I could put 3 different jokes together that would sound like they're from 3 different comedians. I say that as a major compliment. Like you
Oh, that's
never
good.
get bogged down into a particular topic. So it like makes sense to me as you're like describing your taste in this particular special. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
that feeds one small part of you, whereas like all the other things are fed by all these other very small microcosms of entertainment.
Sure. I think, yeah, 'cause- okay, so like it was very hard for me when I first started doing comedy, like write jokes. I wanted to have like a lot of jokes. Like when I first started doing comedy, I was like,
Oh, you
I just wrote
do?
like a lot. Yeah, I do now. Like it just took forever. But
It
like,
does.
I remember I had there was a release of like Emo Phillips like first 2 albums on like one CD.
That's a throwback. Yeah.
But somebody had like I forget who did the notes or whatever that were in the CD, but they were just talking about how like in an Emo Phillips album you hear jokes about philosophy and you hear jokes about religion, you hear jokes about like dating, you hear jokes about his childhood and all this stuff, and or hiking and his thoughts on hiking, things like that. And it's like these are all things that he's really into and things he likes. And I was that like for whatever reason. It just like lit a light bulb in my head, and I was like, "Oh man, that's what I want to do is write about things I like." And I don't do CrossFit, but I think CrossFit's very fascinating to me for some reason.
What is?
CrossFit?
Oh, CrossFit.
Because it's like a cult kind of,
can't
but
do
not
that.
really. Which, by the way, has this ever happened to you where you make a joke about yourself and the crowd laughs in a way that makes you happy but also uncomfortable at the same time?
Most of the time.
I was. This wasn't on purpose, but the audience. One time, I performed in front of an audience that was mostly CrossFit people, and I was like, "You guys
This
can
had to
tell."
be a don't tell.
You guys don't tell it. No, it wasn't. It was just a regular show that just happened to be all CrossFit people. Because I think one of the comics there was a CrossFit instructor.
Oh shit. Okay.
But they laughed very hard when I was like, "Yeah, I've been thinking about working out," and that got such a big laugh. And I was like, on the one hand, I am so happy this is happening, but also hurt. This hurts a little bit that you're thinking of this about me.
Oh yeah. I used to do a joke where I like in the middle of the joke I said, and as you can see I have really big ears, and like there was one time I think I was doing it at the setup in San Francisco, but I was getting laughs, and then I heard one guy turn to his friend and goes, "He really does," loudly. It's not a big room. We all heard it. And I was just like, don't enjoy the joke that much. Don't get into it. You're not a part of it. This is not one of the things where it's an interactive experience where you like this theater so much that you get to jump up and say a thing, especially not something that was going to haunt me for years to come.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not
rough.
It's tough. I was talking about this with Drew Landry, where it's like if you get too vulnerable on stage and then people don't laugh, it's like Jesus Christ. Like you take it personally.
Yeah,
I also think if you just do jokes about yourself and people don't laugh, you're like, oh shit,
yeah.
here we are.
It's hard. I remember I used to do a joke about like when my mom and dad got divorced, it was really hard because my mom had to get the mom sticker off the back of our car. And that never got like a big laugh from anybody but me. Like the audience was always like, "Oh," and I was like, "No,
so
don't."
funny.
It is.
I always joke with my mom. If my mom doesn't like that I tell jokes about her on stage, I'm always like, listen, you keep this up, I'm gonna write another one.
Yeah, my mom doesn't like it. Well, no, you know what? I used to do jokes about my mom. I don't really do them that very. I do very few jokes about my mom, but like the few times she's come to see me, I can see her in the audience because she is turning bright red, regardless of what I'm saying, and she's like, "Andy, it's very silly," which is not a compliment from her. Like
Oh.
that's never like a good thing from her because it's just like I don't get it. I understand that other people are enjoying this. It's not for me necessarily. That's how she has told me about my comedy. She did buy my album. She came out like a week or two ago, and she was just like, "No, it's very good, Andy." And I was like, "Oh, what did you like?" She was like, "It was very good." And I was like, "What? But were okay, all right? No, we're not gonna talk about what you liked, what you didn't like. Okay, cool."
Oh my god.
So yeah, it's fine.
That's like going to a Michelin-starred chef's restaurant and being like, a little salty.
Yeah.
Didn't like it. And everyone else is like 10 stars. And you're just like, no. Honestly, what you did there, you sliced
Yeah.
my cucumber too thin. You get no stars.
Yeah, it's fine. I know my mom loves me. I didn't do this to impress her.
I actually do want to tell you. So we have her downstairs.
Is she?
Yeah, Mom. No. How great would it be if she came up? She goes, "I don't actually love you, Big. Thanks for your time. Have a good day. You take care. Head out."
I do wish you'd call more though. See you later.
Yeah. Well, my mother says that to me all the time. My favorite moment ever is I called my mother the other day, and she goes, "I wish you called more." And I was like, "What do you think we're doing right now?
Yeah, I know.
How do you think you're conveying this message? We are, in fact, and I can't stress this enough, on the phone." I hate to do this because I'm enjoying this conversation, but are you ready for the first segment?
Yeah.
So the first segment is called the Newly Friend Game. It's like the Newlywed Game, but we're friends.
Yeah, we are.
I'm going to I love that so much. I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to write down your answer. Don't say it out loud.
Okay.
And then I'm going to write down what I think your answer is. We're going to flip our boards and see if we got the same question. I always come prepared with questions, and I never go with them, and I always base it on a conversation we've had. Somehow, we were talking about the Ray Romano show, and we were talking about a midlife crises. And it made me think about my question for you, and don't say it out loud, write it down. When you have your midlife crisis, because we all will, what do you think you're going to want it to be? 1, 2, 3, flip. You said getting really into climbing gyms. I said drag racing.
Interesting.
Talk to me about climbing gyms.
So I have a fear of heights, but like every few years, I'll be like, let's try to overcome this a little bit.
Oh my gosh, I also kind of have a fear of heights.
So like about a year ago, do you know Diana Hong?
It sounds familiar, but I don't think so.
She's a really funny comic. But me, her, my wife Hazel, and her fiance Kayla went to a climbing gym together because we had a Groupon. And
do those still exist?
Yeah.
I didn't know Groupon still was around.
Yeah,
Okay.
I looked it up specifically. I was like, is there a Groupon? Oh, there is. Okay, great. And then we had a 16-year-old girl tell us how to like climb because she's been climbing since she was 9. And then I was like, I don't think I'm getting this not correct. And she was like, I mean, it's not super terminal or anything. And I was like, what does that mean?
If it's, I don't care about the modifier. If terminal is in the sentence, I don't want it.
I think I'm dead either way.
Yeah.
But I got to the top of the wall a couple of times. Like, cool.
Not doing
looking
it again.
down. Got to get down somehow.
But you now think you're going to get back into them.
I think I've talked about it with like another comic, like Rishi Area. I've talked to him about it a couple times. I'm like, maybe I'll go to another climbing gym at some point.
Does he climb?
He did. At one point, he was like a member of a climbing gym somewhere in Hollywood. But
Madison Hedgecock climbs.
Does he?
Yeah.
That guy.
That son of a bitch. I said drag racing for you because part of me just feels like I could see you behind the wheel just really revving an engine. I don't know why.
My dad's very into cars, and he used to watch drag races all the times and like go to races a lot.
So I was not so far off.
No.
Would you ever do it?
No, I'd be too scared.
So you're scared of heights, but you'll climb, but you won't drag race.
Dude, I remember like watching those races with my dad as a kid. I'd see the cars catch on fire, or I'd see like, the chute like pull out a little bit too early, and then or too late, and then they crash into a wall or something like that. And I was like,
okay, well, I didn't know that would happen.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about like the Fast and the Furious.
Oh, like I'd be into that kind of drag racing.
Should I have said street racing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Still don't want to do that.
Still don't want to do it. Okay.
No.
So, all right. Well, I wasn't close. Let's do the same question for me.
Okay.
So, what would be what I'm going to do during my midlife crisis? I have an idea. 1, 2, 3, flip. You said get the old band back together and start quilting.
Start quilting.
Yeah. I would say I would get the old band back together, but my bassist lives in Finland and my drummer lives in Denver.
That's never stopped anybody.
No, it's true. I'm down.
Yeah,
Do it virtually. I wrote down a full tattoo sleeve.
I like that.
And learning to fly a plane.
Yeah.
The tattoo sleeve, I think, interests me. And you can put your board down. We're done with this segment. Okay. But I think that the tattoo sleeve, I think, interests me more in theory than in practice. I don't like pain, which I understand your argument might be no one likes pain. My threshold for pain, I think, is lower than your average bear.
No, I'm with you, dude. I don't like if people were like my wife got a tattoo recently and people were like, are you gonna get a tattoo? I'm like, no. And they're like,
she said to you, are you gonna get one?
Yeah.
I would be like, get out of here.
Yeah, I'd be like, never. And she's like, okay. And then other people were like, your wife got a tattoo. Are you going to get a tattoo as well? I was like, no, that was not part of the agreement. The agreement was I drive her to get a tattoo, and then I hang out at the mall while she gets a tattoo.
She got it at the mall?
No, she got a tattoo at a place near the mall, and they were like, it's going to take 3 hours. And I was like, it was in somewhere, I forget where. It was like south of here somewhere, like an hour and a half from where we are.
Oh my God.
And so I was like, well, I'm not just gonna do nothing. And I was like, so I went to a Barnes and Noble. I was like, this is boring. And then I just walked around the mall for a while, and I was like, this is cool.
I didn't know tattoos take so long.
It takes so long, and hers isn't huge, but it took like 3 hours.
So my tattoo sleeve is going to take a really long time.
Your tattoo sleeve could take like months because they might be like, hey, can you handle coloring? And you're like, absolutely not. My arm hurts.
Yeah, that is me.
Yeah.
I would be like, I think I would imagine they're doing it. I'd be like, all right, can we stop for today? And they'd be like, so we haven't put the actual needle in yet. So we just cleaned you off.
You can't work out when you first get a tattoo either. You have to like wait like a week or two on that.
True? I do love that you think I'm in shape enough that is a big thing I should be concerned about.
You just told me you wake up every morning at 7 to go work out.
Well, not every morning, 4 days a week.
That's amazing. I was told 3 to 4 days a week is a habit. So great job.
Do you not work out?
I do.
Okay, so then we're right in the same boat.
But you said you don't. You said I'm not in shape enough to like for that to be a problem. But I was like, you're missing 4 workouts at least.
Yeah, that's
maybe
true.
8.
That's true. I mean, I've recently been trying to get into wedding shape. I know, tough stuff.
What's wedding shape?
You know, just like get shredding. You're shredding for the wedding. You've not heard that.
No.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
You got married so long ago that the trend of shredding for the wedding was not a thing.
Right.
Maybe it was. I don't know.
I don't know.
But you
so
were
long ago.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
This is like maybe too deep of a question.
I don't know.
How the hell do you know at 23 you're like, I'm ready to get married. This is the one.
Dude, I wanted to like be in a relationship with Hazel so bad, like for so long.
When did you meet her?
So it depends on who you ask.
I'm gonna say for now you
does not like that question
because she says you've known each other for longer than you do.
No. I say we knew each other longer than she did because I met her when I was 16 and she was in college.
I see.
So
not a great look.
No. Her and her sister used to book bands, and I would go see those shows, and so that's how I met them. We were not like really close friends or whatever. I would talk to them a couple times near the door or whatever, but they were just more concerned with like collecting money. But we did talk a couple times. But then they both moved up to the West Coast, and then returned several years later. I had not spoken to them in years. I was on a music like community board online. I get a random message from somebody who's like, "Oh, you're like one of the few other people from South Carolina on here." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then we end up hitting it off, and then we meet, and I was like, "Oh, it's you. I know you. We've met." And she was like, "No, I don't think so." I was like, "Yeah, you booked these bands. I was there." She's like, "Oh, okay." And her sister, she has a twin sister, Heather, who was like, "Oh no, I remember you. Yeah, how's it going?" I was like, "Cool." And then we started running together. That's how they were running. I started running with them. They were training for like a half marathon or something like that.
Have you run a half marathon?
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
No, don't do that. I don't recommend it.
My body's not built for that. My body's built for ice cream.
I trained for a marathon with them one time, and then like 1 mile into the marathon, I pulled something and I couldn't run it, and I was like, "Oh, I will never do this again. This is a horrible idea."
You went through all the training and then you
couldn't even complete it. Yeah, it's awful.
I think I could do like half a mile probably in there.
Yeah.
3/4 of a mile.
Yeah.
And then I think I would call it.
No, that's pretty good. Yeah. Who needs it more than that?
I think if you do 1/26 of it, you're fine.
Yeah. I think you're great.
That's where I'm at personally.
I mean, that was the test when you were a kid. Did you have to run the mile when you were a kid?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember this is the most South Carolina thing that ever happened to me as a kid. We had to run a mile when we were kids. I was thinking I was like 8 or 9. We had to run a mile, which meant like 9 laps around this parking lot. 3 laps in, they were like, "Guys, we got to go back inside. There's an alligator." And I was like, "Oh, all right."
I'm sorry. There's an alligator?
Yeah.
What is your life? Like that is like I can't imagine. Like when I came to LA, I learned some weird things. Like they didn't have snow days, they had fire days, and you know, like earthquakes and all that. And we didn't have that. I've never heard of. I don't know what you'd call it, an alligator day.
We just had to go inside. They were like, "You can't deal with this." And then like a couple years later, they would like teach us like, "This is how you get away from an alligator," which then found out later those were not the right techniques at all after all. So,
I mean, out of curiosity for my own edification, what are the techniques?
So they were like, "Here's what you do." They're like, "You have to run in a zigzag pattern because they can't take turns very quickly," was the idea. They run up to 30 miles an hour.
What?
Yeah, alligators are very fast. And then they were like, "Try to get up a tree. They can't climb, And I was like, "Oh, okay, got it." This is what they told us when I was like 10 or 11. I was like, "Okay, cool." And then when I got to college, like we had a biology professor, she's like, that's not true at all. Like alligators can take turns very quickly and they can climb. Like they're not, because then she started showing us like news articles about alligators that got on top of people's houses and stuff like that. And
So
like,
what is the right answer here?
you just don't be around alligators if possible is really the right answer.
I can't like send a note to the Alligator
Yeah.
Federation and be like, guys, I'll stay clear of you. You steer clear of me.
I think it's just like try to be chill. The most haunting thing the biology professor told us was that they were just like, alligators are not going to bite you to death. They don't do that. I was like, oh, okay. She's like, they drag you into the water and drown you. I was like, oh, that's way worse.
I think I would have wanted the first. Can we go back to the belief that it's the first?
Yeah.
It's so funny. You have to live in very particular places where your big risk for the day is being eaten by an alligator.
Yeah.
Or sorry, drowned by an alligator.
Yeah, drowned by an alligator, then eaten. Yeah, it was, no, I remember like, so I worked at a medical university in South Carolina. That's where my first job was, working at medical university. My job was to meet with all the incoming international students and researchers and explain how the U.S. tax system worked to them.
Well, I may need to sit down for that one soon.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. But they also I would also have to go to these meetings with them where they would explain the local animals and plant life to them as well, because they're like, hey, we have a lot of poison ivy. Some of you are not used to that. There were people from countries that never had poison animals, like New Zealand. Apparently, they don't have snakes or spiders or anything like that.
I mean, they're lovely over there. I love New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand. A lot of New Zealanders were like, "What is happening here?" They're like, "Yeah, this is a poison snake." Somebody brought in a live snake for them to hold. It wasn't like a poisonous one, just a live snake. And one guy was like, "Ooh, me." He was like, this guy from New Zealand. He's like, we don't have these in New Zealand. He's like, I really want to. I was like, okay, enjoy.
Was it like a gardener snake, like the ones that don't
No,
bite?
it was a pretty big snake. It was not.
I know.
I wish it was like a regular snake. It was not. It was pretty crazy.
That's my new midlife crisis. I'm just going to be a snake guy.
Dude, I would love that.
I can't do that.
Would Jess be okay with that?
No. I will say Jess's fear of like that kind of stuff is it seems non-existent. Like I always joke that Jess has a high threshold for pain, but I also think she's kind of not scared of stuff unless it's like if we had like a cockroach walk by her, she'll freak the hell out.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone likes cockroaches. I'm from New York. I don't like cockroaches.
No. In South Carolina, I think they're called palmetto bugs, and they fly.
Which, let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Someone tried to make the case that those are different things, and I go, not different enough that they deserve another name.
No.
They look the same.
Yeah.
There was once a...
it's not like the difference between friend and enemy.
No. And by the way, these days, everyone's a frenemy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I wonder who views me as a frenemy. I wonder who's like, because I think in order for someone to be a frenemy, like they have to have some kind of power. And given that I have none, I cannot imagine someone listening to go, he's my frenemy. I'm like, I've got nothing to exert.
Here's the thing. You think you have no power, right? You're like, all I do is I run this podcast and I have a cool show at the Improv. That's all I have.
Anyone can have a podcast.
You think that, but a good podcast?
Once we find out how that works, I'm happy to have one.
I mean, here's the thing. You have to think about the fact that there are people going to mics at Hollywood Comedy and Fourth Wall that really would rather have what we have.
Yeah, that may be true. I
And
think those are... But here's the thing. You and I were there.
Yeah,
Fun
totally.
fact, I've never done a mic at Fourth Wall, but my lord, have I done them at Hollywood Comedy.
Yeah. I've done those things too. It's like we're a little bit above. Like, I'm not saying there's no chance we'll ever do those things again, and there's no way we'll ever fall
Listen,
from what
if I
lofty
need to, I'll
perches
go
we were
back
at.
tomorrow.
We're at Lofty Perches right now. That's the name of this complex, I think.
So that's funny. So we live in an old folks residential facility, which is called Lofty Perches.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you and I don't do Hollywood Comedy. Instead, we do church mic, and that's just as valuable.
Yeah, it's just as valuable. You know what? More valuable. Let's be honest.
I honestly
here.
love it. I haven't been able to do it recently, but I absolutely love it.
Lizzie
I love how it
Beck,
went
shout
away
out.
and then it came immediately back.
Mm-hmm. Because she needed that sweet stage time because she's doing that 45 minutes in October.
I know.
Yeah.
I was like, if I were you, I would probably just find a nice theater person and try and bring all my friends into like 3 different shows and just run.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. Or just do what I did and like have people on the East Coast listen to you talk through your set.
Sorry. So in prepping for your special, you would just call someone.
Yeah.
And you would do your entire set.
Yeah. And then they would give me notes.
Were they comics or just randos?
No, they were comics.
Because I can't imagine if you like.
They were comics that like lived on the East Side. I was like, there's no way they're coming to the special, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, you're saying East Side of LA?
Oh no, East Coast.
Yeah, right. East Coast. East Coast.
Yeah.
I thought for a second, I thought you were like, yes. I'd call my mom and I did the whole
No,
set
no,
for
no,
her.
no, no, no. She would hate that. She would like, dear God.
Yeah, but how do you do the material for somebody on the phone when you're not getting the laugh, so you don't know?
They are getting laughs.
Oh.
Because I'm still performing. I'm not just like, and then I say this, but then I'm thinking about, I say that, I just say, I do it like I was going to do
walk
it.
3 steps to the
Yeah.
right and I turn and I go, boom, punchline.
I heard that Maria Bamford did that, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna start doing that. They're like, she pays them $25 each. I was like, I'm not paying my friends $25. They're just gonna have to sit through me talking.
If you paid $25, I would have sat and listened.
I know, but I was expecting you to be at the show.
I know. I still will never get over my panic moment when you go, well, Jess got a ticket. And I was like, the fuck she did. Unbelievable. All right. I feel like this is as good a time as any to go to the lightning round. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the lightning round is 5 fast questions. They do not at all have to be fast answers. They're just the last 5 questions we end every episode with. I keep this on an index card, not because I don't have them memorized, but because it's my closest I'll get to a late night talk show host.
Sure, man.
It's me and Perkins. We're just in here. We're both doing our best.
Yeah, dude.
So question 1, what is a favorite ritual of yours? So for example, I love brewing tea in the morning.
Yeah, this can sound really bro-y. I like lifting weights. I think that's very like meditative. I'm not like, for those of you listening who've never met me, I'm not like some huge, gigantic dude. I'm very small. Like,
for those who are only listening, he is jacked. Okay,
so
he's
jacked.
breaking through his shirt right now.
Yeah, my shirt.
He's been trying not to flex because the sleeves are already tearing.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I like the act of just like repetition, like counting the number of reps as in my head. I am like listening to music. Usually I'm like, this is great. I'm having a good time right now.
What are you listening to?
I have like several different mixes. It's mostly hardcore and metal stuff. And, you know, you listen to the same stuff. So
yeah, you know me. Give me that metal.
Yeah. You know, Coalesce, Botch, Poison the Well, stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can, yeah.
All stuff you're really into, I know.
Whatever happens with that well.
Poison it.
Yeah, poison it. Question 2, what is a running bit you have with a friend or partner that makes you laugh?
My favorite thing with my wife is if she asks, she likes to ask a lot of questions. And sometimes I do know the answer, but a lot of times I don't know the answer, but she still has to ask me something like, who was that guy in that movie? Or who sang that song?
Sure.
And I will always say, my dad, probably. And she'll get so mad, but she will laugh. But she's like, please stop. That is not funny. I'm like, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
You're still laughing.
She's like, your dad didn't sing the song What's Going On.
Yeah. Or she'll say, like, who do you think lives there? Like, she'll just point at a random house. I'm like, my dad, I think he built it like a long time ago and really just tried to figure it out. So it's going pretty well.
Now, does she have a bit back to you where she says your dad ever to you?
No.
Oh, God,
You
it would
would
be
think,
so good.
man.
She should.
Yeah.
I love that. I may steal it.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I feel free.
I'm going to. Jess will hate it. It has double meaning given my dad's dad.
Yeah,
I'll be like,
yeah.
I think
No,
my
it's
dad lives
excellent.
there or he haunts it.
Yeah.
Question 3. What is a very controversial opinion that you have?
So whenever people I don't want to hear what a person's favorite band or singer or whatever is. I want to hear what their like third favorite is because I think it's more interesting. Usually, like people are like, "Oh, my favorite is Taylor Swift." I'm like, I don't care. Who's your third favorite? Because I feel like that's who you truly are. I feel like it's very easy to like whoever the most famous person in the world is. Like, yeah, I'm sure it is. Oh, your favorite rapper is Kendrick Lamar? Cool. Who's your third favorite rapper? Like,
what if someone says something super obscure? What if someone's first favorite thing is like, what was the band? Poison the Well.
that's very rare when people do that, though. Like, I feel like in general, people are like, "Oh, my favorite thing is the thing that's everybody's favorite thing." I'm like, I don't care. That's not
I
very interesting to me.
legitimately like don't know right now who my third favorite band is. I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's tough for me. I think asking someone their favorite blank is always hard.
Yeah.
So often what I try and do, asking people instead, is I try and say, what is your current favorite blank? How about you? What's your current favorite?
I've been thinking a lot about Starflyer 59's Americana album.
Starflyer 59?
Yep.
What kind of music is that?
It really depends on the album that they decide to put out. But
What about?
So Americana is his attempt at fusing Black Sabbath with the Beach Boys. So it has like these very like heavy like riffs, but also like has these really cool harmonies and stuff like that on it. Has these weird like dreamy tensions to things. It's very cool album.
Interesting.
And actually I met my wife at a Starflyer 59 show. That's where we first met too. So like that's our band.
Important context.
Yeah. But I liked them before I met her too. Like
Yeah.
But that's just the band that we still talk about. I still think puts out good music. I mean, the guy is still putting out stuff even though he doesn't really do much with the band. He's still occasionally will put out an album with them.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
The first concert Jess and I went to together was Backstreet Boys. Very similar.
Oh, what?
I
pretty
was
fun.
visiting her in Houston, and she goes, "I have a big surprise for you tonight. I'm not going to tell you what it is."
Yeah.
Now, some backstory about me is I love a good bit, and so I, as a joke, she was like, "That was I don't know where the accent was from." As a joke, I said, "I was like, really, you're not going to tell me?" And she goes, "I'm not telling you." I was like, "Quit playing games with my heart. Just tell me." I had no clue who it was.
Yeah.
She didn't tell me, and I was like, "That's a great song, by the way."
Yeah.
And she said, "It is a good song." And I was like, "Listen, as long as you love me, I don't care where we're going." And she was like, "Stop doing that." And I was like, "You're not doing any." Oh, hold on, I'm getting the call. And she's like, "Stop it." And I'm like, "It could be anybody or everybody." And I did that. I had that night. She goes, "Surprise!" And it's back where she goes, "I'm sure I know you already knew." And I was like, "I had no idea."
Yeah.
She's like, "You've been quoting Backstreet Boys all day." And I was like, "Well, that's just because I thought that was funny. I had no idea we were going to this concert."
Dude, I love that so much. I love when weird stuff like that happens, like as far as like what you think you're talking about, what they're talking about is very different. Like, do you know the song Firestarter by Prodigy?
Yes, that's one of their most famous songs.
Right, that's like their famous song. There's my favorite sketch pretty much ever involves that song. It was by a German sketch comedian. You know how Germans are known for sketch comedy.
Of course, it's super obscure when it's you.
Yeah, sorry. But like today, I was talking to a coworker, and he was like, "Yeah, we've been having to work from home because they're still moving our offices." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, I was like, "That's pretty cool." He's like, "Yeah, but I'm getting way more work than I want to." I was like, "You want me to burn it?" He was like, "The work or my house?" I was like, "Your work." And he's like, "Is your favorite song Firestarter by Prodigy?" And I was like, for some reason, I was like, did he know somehow that I like repost that sketch? Because I do that every couple of years. I'll just repost that sketch online. Like, this is the best sketch ever. And I was like, "Is this about the sketch?" He's like, "What sketch?" And I showed him the video, and he's like, "That is hilarious and very dumb." He's also a sketch comic as well. So I was like, "See, it's the best, right?"
Oh my god!
But the whole time I was like, "Man, how did he know about me and Sammy's
He's in my
conversation?"
head.
He knows about this. Did Sammy tell him?
Oh my god!
Because I think Sammy knows the guy, so that wouldn't surprise me.
I think that Sammy goes ahead of both of us, finds people we're going to talk to that day, and tells them our secrets.
Sammy definitely does that. Sammy gets some sleep.
Yeah.
Stop hanging out with our other friends.
I do
without
know
us.
that she has trouble sleeping. Yeah, we talked
She
about that
does.
in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
All right, question 4. Have you ever
Yeah.
experienced imposter syndrome? And if so, is there one moment that really sticks with you?
So in my head with comedy, like I always think this is the right moment when this should happen, or this is the wrong moment for this to happen.
Yeah.
Like this should not happen. So one of my goals when I first moved to LA was like, I want to do SF Sketch Festival. That's a pretty big
That's
festival.
a great one.
I want to do that. And then I got it within 2 years of being here. And I was like, what? That's not supposed to happen.
Now what do I want?
Yeah, now what do I want? Because I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make sense to me. And also like nobody else that I considered at my level had gotten that festival. And I was like, how did I get it? Because like I distinctly remember I came home very late at night from a show. It was like 11:50.
Okay.
It was the last day to submit for SF Sketch Festival. And I was like, oh yeah, I got like 10 minutes to submit this festival. Maybe God wants me to. And so I submitted to the festival, and then I fell asleep, and I completely forgot I submitted to it. And then 3 months later, I got an email. They're like, "You got into the festival." I was like, "What festival?" And I was like, "I submitted to that?" I was like, "Oh my God, I did submit to that festival. That's crazy."
There were a few of us recently who got rejection letters from a
Yeah.
festival that I never applied to.
Yes.
Were you part of that group?
Yes.
Yeah, I was literally just like, why are you emailing me?
Yes. But the thing is, I did submit to that festival,
Oh.
but I was given a link for a free submission. And when I submitted, it said, "Thank you for submitting to this festival 2023." And I was like, it's supposed to be for 2024. But then I was like, it's free. They probably know better or not, I guess, in this case, because I still got a rejection letter. So I can't tell if I got a rejection notice because of that or because, like you said, I had submitted many years ago.
Apparently,
2017.
I just love, like I think like Josh Henneman posted, and I immediately responded. I was like, yeah, how did I get rejected from a festival I didn't apply to?
Josh had so many funny rejection things that day. Like
I know.
Here's a series of rejection texts from the girl I did not date or something like that.
It was sensational. All right, question 5, final question.
Okay.
What is your favorite tea? And if you don't have a favorite tea, what is your favorite comfort?
Lipton sweet tea probably.
Oh.
But if it's not a tea, it's my favorite comfort. I do like a nice cherry Coke float with fish food ice cream. The Ben and Jerry's fish food ice
Great
cream.
ice cream.
Cherry Coke is fantastic.
Interesting. I don't think. Can you get that here? A cherry Coke float?
I mean, you can make it yourself at home. That's what I do.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you want to, like, have the experience with the long spoon and the little thingy.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if I feel, I'm trying to think of a place that would make that for me. And all I can think of is like maybe a Waffle House, and they don't have those out here. So,
I've never eaten at a Waffle House, and it is my dream to eat at a Waffle House.
but you went to Texas, right? You didn't eat one while you were there.
I didn't say to Jess, "Hey, while we're in Houston, can we stop at a Waffle House?"
Why?
It didn't occur to me.
Oh man.
And then the Jonas Brothers came out with a song called Waffle House, and I'm like, okay, they even went?
Yeah,
I gotta go.
it happens. It's happening all the time, dude.
I know. Me and the Jonas Brothers, we're gonna go to
Yeah.
Waffle House.
We'll have to get Waffle House together sometime.
I would
Or-
totally do
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
Let's do like a run of southern states, and we'll go get some Waffle House.
I think there's one in Arizona, maybe. So like we could.
I've never
It's
done
right
well in
there.
Arizona, but I will go back and do it again
Oh,
with
we're
you.
not gonna do well in Arizona, but we're
No.
gonna enjoy Waffle House at the very least.
I have bombed my face off in Arizona multiple times.
Cotty was telling me that that Arizona is like pretty rough on her as well, and Cotty's a great comic. So
Agreed.
like, you're in good company.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
That's a pod. How do you feel?
feeling really good, man.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was fun.
Yeah, it's great.
Remind me one more time the get together.
Yep, that's the name of the album. It's on
Great.
Burn This Records. You can find it on Bandcamp, iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify.
Or just go to Andy's house. We'll post his address. Just go to his
Yeah.
house. You'll hear it.
You should. Yeah, please do. I'm always playing it. My wife is always like, please stop. I
Yeah.
was there. I was there. I was like, I know you were.
It's not good if you're not listening to your own special.
Nah.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks, Josh.
That was Andy Ryder. You can find him on Instagram at Andy Ryder Again and on TikTok at The Andy Ryder. You can find his new special, The Get Together, on iTunes. This episode was produced by Jude Crowner. It was edited by Martin Alvarez. Our theme song and additional music are by Oliver Hymack. Our cover art was done by Neil Fraser with photography by Matt Mazisco. Social media by Dia Villegas. Please write a review and rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts and wherever else you can. You can send any questions, comments, newly friend game suggestions, or tea suggestions to steepcombos@gmail.com or tweet us at steepcombos. I'm Josh Lanzet, and you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Josh Lanzet. We'll be back next week, so until then, happy steeping.
Do you think La La Land extended people's stay in LA? Like people were like, I'm getting ready to leave. I can't do this. And then they watch the movie like, one more year.
I think they were all like, you know what? I'm staying until it gets the Oscar.
Yeah.
And you're like, that is not how that works.